Hello my friend, I'm so happy to see you here. It is a wonderful Sunday and we're gonna talk about money. I got really serious with budgeting like 2 years ago when I knew I wanted to quit my job and I had to save up money before I could leave. Then I really had to track every expense while I was unemployed, and when I moved and suddenly had to pay way more for rent, I also had to take a closer look at my budget and do some changes. One thing that I find extremely helpful is to have sinking funds, and that's what this video is about. So let's get started. So your first question is probably, what are sinking funds? Sinking funds are savings for expected or sometimes unexpected expenses in the future. The probably most common sinking fund is an emergency fund, which in my opinion everyone should have. So that's usually an account where you have savings for 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses in case of unemployment or illness or anything that can happen in your life. And it's like a buffer in case of an emergency. But you can also have sinking funds for other occasions during the year where you know there you will have to pay a quite big sum of money. So you usually pay a certain amount of money every month into this sinking fund until you have to use it. So you can actually make a sinking fund for everything that happens in your life, like a birthday, a wedding, Christmas. So a very seasonal sinking fund that I have is Christmas, because it's a quite big amount in November, December, and I usually know how much I actually will need in that period. I have a family plus a host family plus friends that I want to give gifts to, so I usually have to save quite a lot of money to make that happen, and with a sinking fund it makes it so much easier. So I have, for example, a Christmas sinking fund with a goal of 6,000 krona. That's around, I think, almost 600 euros, but around 700 US dollars. So I try to save 500 krona each month, so I have this money ready when I start to buy gifts. Another sinking fund is actually public transport for me, and this is a new sinking fund I have because at the moment I don't pay anything because I'm not going anywhere thanks to COVID, but I decided to save up so I can actually buy, instead of a monthly ticket, I can buy an annual one. So I'm saving up the money that I'm actually at the moment not using for public transport, so at the end that I have like around 8,000 kronas. Very other common sinking funds are, for example, for your pet or your car or your house if you own one. But you can also use a sinking fund for something that is very unbalanced during the year. For me, that's gifts and clothes. So for example, I usually don't have to buy gifts every month, but then another month I have to buy 3 at once. Same as like with clothes, I usually don't have to buy them every month. So that's why I chose to have a sinking fund. So I pay into the sinking fund every month, and then I use the money when I need it to buy gifts or clothes for me. Another sinking fund you could use is, for example, for electricity. Usually in the winter months you will use way more money for electricity, and then you can save money on the summer and put that at the side to use it for the winter. So what sinking funds do is to kind of balance out your budget throughout the year, that you don't have like going very deep into your savings. If you have emergency fund and a very healthy relationship to your personal finances, this is probably enough to finance certain months or areas. But if you are on a low income, if you don't have an emergency account, or if you rely a lot on your credit cards, this is probably a good idea to try. So if you want to start with sinking funds, where do you begin? What kind of sinking fund should you choose? I would say first you try set up an emergency fund. Like in my case, I knew I didn't need like certain months of savings, but I wanted to have a certain number that feels comfortable for me. But you can also start another sinking fund for something you really know you use, for example, your credit card for, or where you feel like, oh, this is something coming up where I'm kind of afraid of how it will look at my checking account, like Christmas or birthday. Then of course you have to think about how much do you need in this sinking fund for a certain date. Like me, for example, for Christmas, when I know I need around 6,000 krona, it's easy for me to decide at the beginning of the year that I will pay 500 krona each month into the sinking fund. So you look at the sum that you need and then divide it by the months you will save for. Now with my ongoing sinking funds, where I take out and in all the time, I decide, okay, how much I want to spend for that during the whole year. So I decided, for example, I want to try to not spend more than 6,000 krona for clothes in this year. So every time I pay into my sinking fund, I will mark that on the back and also how far I got here. And on the back, I will also write down when I take out money from my sinking fund while this is going up during the year. Because at the end I want to have saved 6,000 krona, but probably have used also everything. That's how I use my ongoing sinking funds. So after you know what kind of sinking funds you want to save for and also the amount, then you have to think about how you want to save for that. I have all my sinking funds as an extra account linked to my checking account. And then in addition, I have them all on my envelopes just to have like the visual tracker to see how far I've got. But I don't use cash at the moment. So this is all electronically. And I use these envelopes just like as a visual helper. Especially here in Norway, it's getting more and more common to use only your card, but you shouldn't underestimate how much the visualization can help you. If you have like a jar with your money that you put in there every month, it does something for you to see the amount growing every time, especially if you're a very visual person like I am. So I really miss to not having cash, but that's unfortunately how it is at the moment. When you have a budget, you will put that in your sinking fund area or in your fixed expenses if you want to make a little bit more commitment. And when you use your money from the sinking fund, you write it down in your expenses tracker. And when the event is over, you can start over again with a new sinking fund. Or in my case, with the 2 ongoing sinking funds, I start with them next year again, if I'm still think that's a good idea. So I hope I inspired you to try some sinking funds. These very cute envelopes actually from the Budget Mom, I will link her down below. Let me know what you're gonna save for. I hope this video was helpful and I will see you next week. Stay merry.